Tuesday, happy April 14th, happy day 104 of the year. How are you feeling this morning? It is a beautiful sunny day here in Veliko Tarnovo in Bulgaria. You can see the natural light in my studio is really beautiful, so I'm getting some things together because I'm going to be going on a little trip for the next couple of days. I'm going to do a screen printing workshop with a studio here in Bulgaria that I've wanted to work with for many, many years. They're about an hour away in another little town called Gabrovo. So I'm going to be going there and spending the next 3 nights with them on location in their amazing studio up in the mountains, which I'm very excited about. So just prepping things for that. So what do you have planned on this beautiful Tuesday? Hopefully you've got an exciting creative project coming up, or maybe you are going traveling somewhere, or maybe you're just having a nice relaxing morning at home. Whatever you're doing today, I hope it's a beautiful day wherever you are. So as I said, we're on day 104 of the year. So grab your books, grab your journals, grab something to write with. Find a nice quiet and comfy place where you're not going to be disturbed for the next 15 minutes or so while we read together. Remember that 15 minutes is just 1% of your day. So by choosing to take this little 1% of your day for the last 104 days of the year, hopefully you're starting to see the compounding effects of making small commitments to your daily practice. When you started on day 1, I'm sure you're in a very different place than where you are now on day 104. So congratulations and thank you so much for being here for all of this time. So open up your books, page 104. Our word for today, according to Deng Ming Dao and his book 365 Dao, is readiness. So get quiet, get comfy, be here and now and present, and let's start reading together. A knife keeps its edge only with honing and proper cutting. A warrior's virtue is readiness. A sage's virtue is awareness. This life is so competitive and challenging that one must remain in constant readiness for the problems and conflicts that come with each day. That is why followers of Tao meld the way of the warrior and the sage. So think about warrior and sage. Those are kind of 2 different types of people, correct? It's kind of like a yin and a yang. It's a balance like we were talking about for the last few days. A warrior, a fighter on one side, and a sage, an intellectual person on the other, balancing those 2 opposites, yin and yang. They want the courage and preparedness of the fighter, the luminous perception of the wise. Each day, they dedicate themselves to maintaining their characters and perpetuating their development. But how does one maintain one's edge without blunting? There is a fable about a king who was watching his butcher. He was amazed that the man could dismember a whole ox without much effort and without dulling his knife. Seeking to learn, the king questioned his servant, who said that his secret was to insert his knife only in the spaces between muscles, thus parting the body along its natural lines. In this way, where an ordinary butcher had to grind his blade daily, he only had to sharpen his knife once a year. From this, we can learn that we must first hone ourselves to a sharp edge, but the proper use of our talents is equally essential. We must remember to take action along the basic lines and seams of the day. If we do this, we can never be opposed for long. Wow, so I think today's passage, if we could summarize it in just kind of one sentence, it's like working with what is and not going against the grain. If you think about that, so I think about that a lot when I'm tearing papers, especially right now because I'm making a lot of collages. A piece of paper has a grain, so it's created in a certain way, and if you tear it with the grain, you'll get a nice, straight, smooth tear. Whereas if you try to tear it against the grain, it's going to be very jagged, and because you're working against what is. And that's kind of what it's saying here. The reason the butcher was able to keep his knife so sharp is because he was working with what is. He was working with the lines in between the muscles. He wasn't forcing, he wasn't pushing, he wasn't using his knife in an exaggerated way to try to cut something. He was just looking at what was there and working with those natural seams, so he didn't have to put in as much effort and he didn't have to dull his knife. So think about that in the context of what the things that you're doing. If you're ever forcing something or you're pushing something or you're going against the grain, think about how much effort you're expending into that. And most of the time it feels forced, it feels like work, and a lot of the time it doesn't work out. Or you're going to, if you're thinking about like the image of the paper, you're going to tear it and it's not going to be a clean tear. It's going to be jagged and messy. Whereas if you're going to work with what is, take your time to have a look at the situation, be like, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. How can I do this most effectively and work with what's here and go with the grain? You're going to make a tear that's very clean. So think about that. That's like a nice visual metaphor to think about. If you don't want to think about a butcher carving up a bunch of meat, think about tearing a piece of paper. And you can perhaps go and do that exercise for yourself right now. Grab a piece of paper, tear it with the grain, and then tear it against the grain and look at the two results of those outcomes. Isn't it much better to work with what is and go with the grain and have a nice, clean, effortless tear rather than going against it and it's jagged and it's a mess and it doesn't look great and you have to expend more energy as well. So that can be your lesson for today. Go with the flow, I guess you could say. Go with the grain. Don't fight against things. Don't put unnecessary force because you're going to blunt your knife. And we don't want that. We want a nice smooth transition with life. We want to work with what is. We want to go with the flow. All of those things that could have indicate that there's multiple ways to do things, but sometimes going with the flow, going with the grain, and just working with what is going to give you the best outcome, and you're going to expend the least amount of energy. So some nice things to think about as you start your day today. I encourage you to go and do that exercise with a piece of paper just so you can kind of get a visual and metaphoric understanding of what it's like to go with the grain or against the grain. And then put that into practice today as you move through life and perhaps something comes up for you and you don't want to force against it. You're just going to go with it and then see how you feel when you've made a decision like that. So thank you so much for being here for 104 days of this year, and I will check in with you tomorrow. Bye.